interview. Hi. So my name's Tim, and I've had a journey with food and consciousness. I guess we all have, but I will share my perspective through time and space. So I guess when I was younger, I had really strong energy. Never really was concerned about food or any problems with food, or whether I was too thin, too tall, to this, to that. Just natural. I remember the first time I became actually self-conscious was when I went to university, and I went to Colorado. I'm from America. So I left New York and went to Colorado, and the culture was a bit different. So the guys who I knew there were all into lifting weights and this kind of thing. And suddenly I saw myself as too skinny. I had no awareness about this before. So this already became a journey, like some kind of like comparison and insecurity. And it tied into food and to the way I saw myself and the way I saw other people see me. I used to just do sport for sport's sake because I enjoyed it. I played hockey and basketball and football, lots of different sports, running, track and field. But I never was really concerned how I performed. I just performed well if I was in the right zone. And later, I kind of began this journey with how food and supplements and all these kind of things would alter my performance. So I became super aware of how different substances were supposed to make me feel. So I would read all the ingredients, and this is for triathlon, this will give you more fuel, and you'll be able to run longer with these super carbohydrates in some plastic tube. And it was like that. And I never really so much had the effect of the thing that it was supposed to do. I just knew intellectually, because of the label or my research, what it allegedly did. The first time I really had a heightened awareness about how food made me feel in terms of my body was when I started doing asana practice, when I started doing yoga. And then I became much more aware of how when I ate, what I ate, where I ate, if it was cooked or not, whether it was liquid or not, how I felt in my body during my yoga practice. So at this point, I started experimenting with raw food and liquidarian lifestyle. And my favorites were an electrolyte lemonade I made myself and a raw food gazpacho. I remember living off these two substances for months at a time. And I would go to work and I'd have my little thermoses. At that time, I was working on Wall Street as an emerging market hedge fund manager. And I was definitely the weirdest one of the bunch with my little raw food concoctions. Later on, I fell into some unresolved emotional and beliefs, unresolved issues regarding everything in my life. And during this period, I became much less careful and much less considerate and much less conscious about my food choices. I was working very hard. I had a lot of stress, a lot of travel. I couldn't pursue my health and exercise the way I used to. After some period like that, I became quite ill. So I always knew myself as super vibrant and high energy among the highest energy people I knew. And now I felt very low energy and achy and tired, not myself. So at a certain point, I really hit rock bottom. And at this moment, I had my first surrender. And I really remember thinking, if there is some divine intelligence, some force out there, I need help. Because whatever steps I've taken to get me into this position, it's not working. And I need a different consciousness to get me out of the situation I'm in. And the same consciousness that got me into this situation would not resolve it. So I remember opening myself up in surrender and asking for help from the divine. I began a journey investigating ethnogens and trying to alter or change my consciousness, to expand my consciousness, to explore different perspectives. And that journey, we can say in shamanism, lasted about 2 years. One day during a ceremony, I felt, I don't know how many volts, 10,000 volts, let's say, going through my body, nuclear reactor. I had so much energy and started to in 60 seconds. It's like worst nightmare come true as a child. Everyone else was singing listen songs, and I was a rocket ship on the launch pad. And that was the first situation. I knew this is what I've been looking for. This is that dynamism, that energy, that power, and that love, that joy that I felt in my deepest essence was me. It was interesting because even though the I was no longer attracted to plant hands. I discovered a type of yoga called Shakti, which means in Sanskrit, descent of grace. So there are certain yogis, people, who have been blessed with the capacity to transmit altered states of consciousness, Kundalini and Kundalini awakening, just by their very presence. When I learned about this, I intuitively understood this was the path that I must follow. I found someone, who would this with. I started having mystical experiences. My throat chakra started to open and I started to sing. My voice, which before had been so bad, I remember being teased mercilessly by my sister, who has a gorgeous voice. But now my own voice, my inner voice, my true voice, my divine voice started to reverberate, to vibrate, and to expand. I'm not quite sure if my first words were Jai Ma, it means victory to the mother, but it was something like that. I felt this deep connection to the divine feminine as divine mother. And it wasn't that I chose that, it was that that's what was coming forth. At this time, I started pursuing what we can say is a Shakta path, or the path of Kundalini Shakti. Now, just to be clear, because we use this terminology a lot, especially prana, which is energy, more specific. So everything is prana. Everything has life force. Every being has prana. Every animal has prana. Anything alive has prana. Plants. But let's say when the human passes over, that prana leaves the body. There's no prana left anymore. The Kundalini is Kundalini Shakti. It's a goddess. So many people talk about Kundalini energy, but in my experience, it's a goddess. So this became my path. At the same time, I was still pursuing my experiments with food. I'd become a raw foodist at different times, liquidarian, a fruitarian. I had fasted 90 days in a row. I had fasted, dry fasted, urine therapy, any kind of fast, 40 days on orange juice, watermelon only for 2 months, any kind of fast that seemed to be intriguing, I tried. What I realized is they were great, but they were, for me, at least at that point, unsustainable. I would feel great for a while, super energized, super connected would develop. People would say, oh, you look very thin. And I knew it wasn't just because they were projecting something, that actually I was looking a little thin and not so healthy. Or I would start to lose my hair color, or my nails would start to look not so beautiful. My tongue would be all white. So this was clues that all the fasting wasn't going to be a long-term lifestyle at that point. So it was really like threading a needle. How do I stay as connected to source, to Shakti as possible, and as light in the body as possible? Those were my twin paths. It's like connected to source, connected to the love, connected to all that there is, getting uploads and downloads all the time, and feeling light and free and energetic and expansive in the body. In 2016, as I was going deeper and deeper into my Kundalini journey, I visited a Kali temple in Haridwar, India. In fact, where Naida and I met in Haridwar, and Nicholas too. And I went there to meditate. I had been meditating in Indian temples often, lots of good energy in Indian temples. And people have been praying for thousands of years. Field is very potent and very rich. While at this Kali temple, I had my second large awakening. If the first awakening was 10,000 volts, this was unlimited voltage that came into my body. I was roaring, and I entered into a single fused consciousness with Divine Mother Kali. My tongue extended, like exactly like you see depicted in the iconography. And if I hadn't been in a Kali temple meditating and actually actively pursuing greater depth with Kundalini, I might have been concerned. But somehow, an inner knowing, I knew what this was, and I knew it was good for me. From that day, which was between the eclipses in September 2016, Kali and I have shared a single fused consciousness, meaning that it's not so easy to tell where Tim begins and Kali ends, or Kali begins and Tim ends. It shuttles back and forth all the time. As we can say in parlance, uploads and downloads are continuous. This was a major change for me. It was, many people say, I'm my own guru, but as long as it's your ego that's the guru, you're not doing yourself any favors. But in this case, the I was Kali. Kali became my guru. In Sanskrit, we say Ishta Devata. And all my focus went towards her. And she began to guide me in all my choices, not verbally, but emotionally. I would feel into every situation, and I would notice that where I pushed or where I tried or where I desired something that may not be aligned for me, I would feel almost immediate feedback or pressure that this is not aligned. Where when I made choices that were healthy for me and service of my awakening, I would get bliss and joy and love as the feedback. So this was an amazing breakthrough in my journey, because now there was this divine guidance, this force of love and joy shaping and guiding all my decisions. So of course, I still had beliefs and projections and psychological stuff going on. But when I went too far off track, I would start to feel incredible pressure that would put me back on track. And this is the way that Kali and her school of yoga, we can say, formed my inner guidance. We can say like a Kali GPS. And it went towards everything, relationships, but also towards food. So I began to discard my fruitarianism, my liquidarianism, my raw foodism, any ism, veganism. I let it all go. I became not so concerned about what label I was or even what I ate, where it came from, what the label said. I let all these things go. Instead, what I focused on was how it made me feel. And it's not me as Tim, although I was also having the feeling of what I ate or didn't eat. It was more Kali's joy and Kali's love. So we can say I was eating for her, or she was eating me, or however you want to look at it. So now when I had a substance that made me feel expansive, joyful, and in my love essence, it was almost immediately reverberating back to me. Likewise, when I made choices that were not aligned, the effect was also immediate. I would feel tightening in my muscles. I would feel aching in my lower back. I would feel contracted, where sometimes Kali would even direct me to have things that I hadn't had in a decade. I remember she sent me out for sake one night. I hadn't had an alcohol drink in a long, long time, but the message was very clear. And I know from my experiences to listen to her guidance. I went into a sake samadhi. Can you believe it? My head went back. The thoughts ended. Sake samadhi. I realized after this experience that actually what the substance was that she guided me to was not important. Instead of focusing on the guidance, to focus on the guide. And that she was continually breaking down my belief systems, my fears, my projections, my structures. So we can say that if there's a goal, the goalless goal is the Tao of the feminine. So we could say the Tao of love, where you're completely spontaneous and intuitive and in free flow. There's a nice Zen saying which says, when tired, sleep, when hungry, eat. But yet we eat for so many other reasons: emotional patterns, fears, so many reasons, conditioning, pressure. And really to only eat what you're guided to, and when necessary. And when is it necessary? When you're guided to. It's such freedom. I felt for the first time in my life more and more relaxed about food and how it made me feel. The Sake Samadhi episode was a big eye-opener. Nowadays, I don't eat very much, but it's not because I'm trying to be something. It's because that's how guidance or the guide has brought me. I day to day live mostly on liquids, coconut water, teas, broth. Sometimes I still go out for a sake samadhi. But the whole idea and all the energy and construct around food and stress around that has largely fallen away. It's been de-emphasized. It no longer holds such an important thing in my journey. Rather, I am more attracted to and feeling to lead people into expanded states of consciousness. That's my primary focus. In 2016, when I had my Kali awakening, I quickly realized afterwards that the state of consciousness that I was in can be shared. When I sat with people to meditate who wouldn't know anything about me or about Kali, they would quickly begin to have mystical experiences, pressures in their third eye, spinal undulations, visions of the goddess, chanting of spontaneous mantra. This is Shakti Pat. It's the descent of grace. What that means is that the divine source, grace, Ma, whatever you're comfortable with calling it, uses for her own reasons, for the own reasons of the divine intelligence, uses your vehicle as a vehicle of transmission to help expand consciousness. So now here in Bali, in Ubud, I have an ashram, the Vama Kali ashram. So Vama is in Sanskrit, it's like the most beautiful, the most feminine, the most loving form of Kali. So you'll see sometimes Kali depicted as quite ferocious or fierce. But the form of Kali that's present for us here is filled with joy and love and nurturing. Students come from all over the world and we sit together and meditate. And now I'm able to help them in their journey in consciousness, as well as their journey with food to support their journey in consciousness. So what I realized is that many of the things that I experienced in my journey of consciousness and in my journey of food, they begin to experience as well. That's the transmission effect. And this enables me to be of help to them, to nurture them in their journeys, because I have experienced mostly what they've experienced. So I can teach from where I've been and help them become who they are. So this is a journey beyond food, beyond mysticism, beyond yogic superpowers. It's a journey to remember yourself as love, to remember yourself as the love that you are and you've always been. We can say, instead of self-realization, love realization, not the personal conditional love, but the divine, most expansive, unconditional love. Day by day, we sit here, we meditate, we share together, and we go on a journey to liberation. We can say that we not only become free from food, freedom from food, freedom of food, but just freedom. Freedom from your own constructed beliefs and conditioning, not just as related to food, but related to all aspects of your life, including food. But food is a really interesting one because it really is such a common experience and such a first chakra, we can say, relationship. So it's so primal and so interesting and so rich. So I'm often sharing with the people who come to meditate about how to move to lighter and lighter states of existence so they can feel the love that they are. Om.
Om. Thank you so much, Tim. And I saw the ashram, I saw it from the beginning when it was just a land with clear visions. And I saw it recently with the dome built and the evolution of it. And I really hope that many people can benefit of this place, like already many are.
Thank you so much, Naida.
Yes. Thanks for your sharing. And we go now for question. And I invite the audience to write question here in the Zoom chat, or if someone here at the festival wants to approach me and ask me question, I'm available. There is one already, which is about pleasure. Food is a pleasure. What is pleasure for you, and how to deal with temptations?
Wow, great question. In the Divine Mother tradition, the twin, we can say, goals are liberation, moksha, and also bhoga, which means enjoyment. So a lot of yogic paths, particularly ones associated with the divine masculine, are constructed upon austerity. But in the Shakti tradition, in the Divine Mother path, we enjoy the world. So there is no temptation, there's only enjoyment, because temptation is like also involves guilt. And I shouldn't, I'm tempted. But we can say that to fully embody yourself as a human being, we have the five senses. They're not a mistake. We are here to enjoy also our time in this body. So there is no temptation. There is only enjoyment. Pleasure is available to us in so many ways. Even pain can be pleasurable. We can look back at times that might have been painful and find some pleasure in the intensity of it. There's pleasure and enjoyment are more a matter of perspective. So I usually have one mantra that I share with everyone, which is acceptance, surrender, and enjoy.
Thanks. A mantra that is very important to keep in mind. Mm-hmm. The next question is about Kundalini. And you said you worked on Kundalini. Which kind of practice did you do? And actually, what Kundalini means to you?
So Kundalini is, we can say from this perspective, from this Kali Divine Mother perspective, and from my personal experience, as she's taught me, is she is the creatrix of the universe and all universes, the womb or the black hole of which all creation springs. And some of that creation, the power, the unlimited potential of that power is also in the human being, and that's Kundalini. And when that Kundalini wakes up, that divine intelligence wakes up within you, within your field, within your body, within your bodies, and begins to take independent action within you. So that's Kundalini, continually expanding your consciousness and divinizing every aspect of your being. In the beginning, I did more willful practices, but later on, my practice became surrender. So in this tradition, Shakti path, we sit and we surrender. So there's no mantra, there's no pranayama, there's no asana, there's no self-inquiry. No, we sit together and just allow whatever is to is, again, like the Tao, the Divine Mother Tao. And within that, Divine Mother does her work. So I could never do what Divine Mother does. I could never do the correct pranayama exactly the way it is. And the pranayama that she might introduce into my body, you will not read about in any book. And I will never figure out all the ways that this is changing my psychophysiology or my pranic body or anything else. It's beyond comprehension. And in this non-practice practice, these type of experiences, whether it's chanting, mantras, pranayama, or asana, all happen spontaneously. So in this purposeful surrender, so the last willful thing is to surrender, and then whatever comes, comes. And then that is a spontaneous form of yoga, a very potent, visceral, spontaneous Kundalini yoga. So that's Kundalini yoga in the Shaktipat tradition, not Kundalini yoga by Yogi Bhajan or other more willful practices.
Thank you. Give me just 1 second because I'm reading the questions. And
Sure.
just want to mention that there are also many messages with gratitude, wonderful and insightful sharing. It filled me with love.
Om.
You know, the way you know. So through a practice of surrender, I had my Kundalini awakened and I was enjoying it for some time. And I noticed that it had a sort of personality. It felt like I was watching it dance or watching it moving around. Have you merged your identity to be the Kundalini?
Wow, what a great question. And the answer is yes. So exactly. So I feel my identity and the Kundalini have merged. And that's part of what makes the Shaktipat transmissions so potent, is because we are, especially in a meditative situation, we are one, and that transmission is happening. So I eat because the Kundalini guides me to eat what I eat, and I go to where the Kundalini guides me to go, and I sit with whom the Kundalini brings here to sit together, and we are one. Yes, great, very insightful question. Thank you.
Thank you.
One idea I had, Naida, I don't know if we have 5 minutes for a quick meditation, so people can actually experience what I'm verbally talking about, and then we maybe have another couple questions after that.
Let's do this. Let's go for one question, and then we go for the meditation before closing, so
Great.
that we can switch off the rational part of the brain. So, how pranayama is correlated with pranic living, source feeding, and in general with our life and in your personal life journey?
My perspective on prana and pranayama might be a little different than most people's. This aspect of the journey that many focus on was never that attractive to me. I did lots of pranayama because I was interested in the effects that it was alleged to produce. But truth be told, I never had the effects that the pranayama was supposed to produce. I'd have like a mild buzz, but nothing extraordinary. I really see the Kundalini, although Kundalini Shakti and prana is also a Shakti, they're related in that they're energy, they're moving, they're dynamic, they're the divine feminine, both. The Kundalini, I feel in my experience, my personal experience, is a much more potent, visceral, and dynamic force, more intelligent, more, more mystical, more powerful. So my attention really turned where other people's attention and were drawn more maybe towards prana. and pranayama, my path, instead of that, was drawn towards Kundalini.
Thank you, Tim. And we can close here with the Q&A and go in this experience that you will guide for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Naida. Thank you so much for everything. So I will, now you'll get to see, hear, and feel Divine Mother and spontaneous Shakti path as a lived experience. So accept, surrender, and enjoy. Om. There is only love, one being, one light, one love, I am. Oma Shrima Vama, Bhakta A, Om Shakti Ma, Hail Mary, full of grace, we are all one. Jai Ma. Batu Mashawa Dasa Bhakta, Om Shakti Ma, one being, one light, there is only love. Bhavatu Kamawa Dasa Bhakta, Om Shakti Ma, one being, one light, I am. Kasatotoya Kikanate, Vasudeva, Kikanatayo Tikarokaya Kamata, Vamakali, Sikarokoya Kikanate, Vasudeva, Kamatata Nata Bhakta, Om Shakti Ma. Om Ajema. Om Ajema. Om Vama Kali, Kamasatayo Kikara Kaya Ka, Bhakta A, Om Shakti Ma, Vama Kali. Kamasatayo Gota Tatoya Ka, Vatu Ma A Dasa Bhakta, Om Shakti Ma, Sham Sham Sham, Bhakta A, Om Ma Ma, Jai Jai Ma, Vama Kali, Om Ma Jai Ma. Om Namah Shivaya, Jai Ma, Jai Ma.
Jai Ma. Thank you, Tim. And is there any way people can reach out to you? Also, if someone here have been touched by your transmission, maybe you are the best person to talk about it. Yeah.
Yes, please feel free to get in touch with me. You can find me on Facebook in my bio on the Breatharian World webpage. You'll find my Facebook page. You can also find me on www.kaliawakening.com. That's my webpage and the ashram webpage. And if you're ever in Bali and Ubud and you want to come check out what we're doing here, please feel free to contact me.
Thank you, Tim. Hope to be back soon in Ubud. I miss home, I miss you, and I'm very grateful for this moment we have spent together with all the participants of the festival, online and in presence. Thank you so much. I see you soon.
Thank you, Naida. Thank you, Nicholas. Thank you, the rest of the team. Thank you to all the other presenters. Many of you have been such beautiful inspirations to me in my journey. Thank you all so much. Jai Ma.
Jai.